What happens when three loud gangsters crash a black man's wedding and try to humiliate him in front of everyone? They never expected how one quiet moment at the altar would flip the whole church upside down. Before we begin the story, write in the comments where you are watching us from. You ever stand in front of a church, hands shaking just a little, trying to keep your tie straight because today's the day you do something right? That was me. Standing there in a clean white suit I'd saved up for months, sweat running down my back while I held a bouquet that cost more than my first car payment. Folks were staring, some smiling, some nodding, some wiping tears already, like they could see what was coming down that aisle. I was about to marry Amanda, the kindest woman I'd ever met. And let me tell you, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Before I could walk in, though, I saw Ms. Jenkins, old and tiny, hunched on the church steps, breathing heavy under that July sun. I dropped everything, ran over, draped my suit jacket around her shoulders, and gave her water. "Bless you, baby," she whispered, holding my hand like I was the only safe thing in her world. And right there, while I was doing what my mama raised me to do, I heard tires screech like the devil himself pulled up to watch. An old black Impala, dented doors, loud engine rattling like a bad cough, rolled up and parked crooked. Out jumped three white boys wearing cheap leather vests and eyes that had no business at a church. "Look at this, boys," the tallest one laughed, pointing right at me. "The Jungle King trying to marry himself a princess today." Another one spit gum near my shoes, smirking like he just told the funniest joke on earth. "You think you belong here, man?" My hands clenched around Ms. Jenkins' water bottle. Part of me wanted to say something sharp, but I heard that organ inside, felt Amanda's eyes searching for me down the aisle. So I nodded at Ms. Jenkins, made sure she was steady, and turned back toward the doors. That's when one of them stepped in front of me, blocking the door with that dirty boot, lifting his chin like he was about to get a medal for being disrespectful. "Nah, not today. You gonna walk through me first." Inside, I could hear the organ start up, guests shifting, turning, confused why the groom was still outside. My heart was beating so loud I thought it might break through that white shirt, but I kept my face calm, swallowing every word I wanted to throw at them. Another one grabbed the boutonniere from my lapel, ripped it off, dropped it on the ground, and stepped on it slow, grinding it into the dirt with the heel of his boot. "Oops," he said, smirking. I bent down, picked up that crushed flower, and shook off the dirt, tucking it into my pocket. I looked that man dead in the eye, and he looked back like he was trying to find a crack in me. But he wasn't going to get it. Not today. Inside, I saw Amanda peek out, confusion and fear on her face, her hand clutching the side of her dress. She was waiting on me, and here I was, standing in front of three clowns who thought the biggest moment in my life was their playground. They laughed again, loud and sharp, drawing looks from people passing by. "Come on, man, let's see if you really got what it takes," one of them said, pushing my shoulder just enough to test me. I took a step back, lifted my hands, and said, "You done?" They didn't answer, just kept laughing, one pulling out his phone, recording, saying, "Gotta show the boys how a hero looks on his big day." That was it. Right there, I felt it in my chest, that mix of anger and calm that told me I couldn't give them what they wanted. They wanted a scene, wanted me to lose it, wanted me to prove every word they were saying, but I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. I turned, opened the church doors, and walked in, shoulders back, eyes forward. I could feel them watching me, but I didn't look back. Not once. And as I walked down that aisle, every eye on me, every step heavy, I thought about Miss Jenkins outside, about Amanda waiting, and about how the world likes to test you right when you're trying to do something good. And that's when I knew, deep down, that this wasn't just a wedding day. This was a test of who I was going to be when it mattered most. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this turned out. They say the quiet before the storm is peaceful, but let me tell you, there was nothing peaceful about that church when I walked in. Folks turned in their seats, whispers flying like paper planes, eyes bouncing between me, my crushed flower, and those three troublemakers swaggering in behind me like they owned the place. Amanda was standing near the altar, clutching her bouquet so tight her knuckles were pale. She tried to smile, but I saw that fear, that flicker of, "Why is this happening now?" cross her face. The pastor cleared his throat, trying to keep it together, but even he couldn't ignore the tension rattling around the pews. And those boys? They plopped themselves down in the last row, loud, making sure everyone saw them leaning back like they were here for a comedy show. One of them pulled out a phone, pretending to scroll, but the camera was pointed right at me. I could feel it, like a spotlight trying to catch me slipping. "Don't mind us," the tallest one called out. "We're just here to support the happy couple." People turned around, some with frowns, some with fear, nobody wanting to be the one to say, "Get out." Because that's how it goes, right? Folks see trouble and freeze, hoping it'll walk out on its own. But trouble rarely leaves quietly. The pastor started the ceremony, voice shaking just a little as he spoke about love, about unity, about how two souls come together as one. I tried to focus, tried to keep my eyes on Amanda, but those voices in the back kept cutting through. "Man, look at him shaking. He ain't ready," one of them muttered, just loud enough for the people in the back rows to hear. Amanda's eyes filled with tears, not the happy kind we'd talked about. She glanced at me and I nodded, trying to let her know it was okay. But it wasn't. It wasn't okay to have your wedding turned into a circus by folks who didn't know how to respect a moment. Then, just as I was about to say my vows, one of them let out a loud fake cough, followed by a laugh that echoed off the stained glass windows. "Come on, preacher. Let him speak up. We can't hear the man," he shouted. My hand holding the ring trembled, but I took a breath, steadying myself. The pastor gave me a small nod, encouraging me to continue, but I could see the frustration in his eyes, too. I looked at Amanda and started speaking, voice clear, every word heavy with the weight of the moment. "Amanda, you are the light that—" Suddenly, a can of soda flew past my shoulder, bursting open on the floor near the altar, spraying droplets onto my shoes. Gasps filled the church, a baby started crying, and Amanda dropped her bouquet, covering her mouth. "Oops," the man in the back called out. "My bad." And that was it. The line was crossed. I turned slowly, facing the back of the church, meeting the eyes of each one of them. My chest was tight, but my mind was clear, like a drumbeat telling me to stand firm. I walked down the aisle, each step measured, each breath steady, as the crowd fell into a stunned silence. When I reached them, I didn't raise my voice, didn't swing, didn't give them the scene they wanted. "You've made your point," I said, calm, looking the tallest one in the eye. "Now leave." He smirked, leaning back. "Or what? You gonna make us?" I felt every eye on me, felt Amanda's hope clinging to my back like a prayer. The man stood up, taller than me, leaning in close so I could smell the stale soda on his breath. "You don't belong here," he whispered. For a moment, I felt that anger rising, that need to show him who I was, to break the silence they were using like a weapon. But I took a breath, remembering who I was, who my father raised me to be. I turned away, walking back up the aisle, picking up Amanda's bouquet, handing it back to her with a nod. She was shaking, but she took it, clutching it to her chest like it was the last piece of peace she had left. Behind me, the laughter started again, low and mocking, but I ignored it, focusing on Amanda, on the promise we were about to make, refusing to let them steal this day from us. "This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Stay to see how the hero stood his ground and changed everything." Let me tell you something about standing your ground. It ain't always about throwing fists or raising your voice. Sometimes it's about holding your peace so tight it shakes the walls harder than any shout ever could. The church was quiet again, but it wasn't the peaceful quiet we deserved. It was the thick kind, the kind that buzzes in your ears, heavy with what everyone wanted to say but was too scared to let loose. I stood by Amanda, taking her hand, feeling her fingers trembling in mine. Her eyes were glassy, but her chin was up, strong, like the woman I fell for the first time she read scripture in Sunday school with that fire in her voice. She looked at me like she was ready to fight beside me, and that alone gave me strength. The pastor cleared his throat, and for a second it felt like we might finally get our moment. Then, the doors creaked open, and the laughter from the back row turned into a cackle. Those three troublemakers strutted down the aisle, slow, boots tapping on the tile like they were marking their territory. "Aw, come on now," the tallest one said, voice dripping with fake pity. "You really gonna pretend we ain't here?" He stepped right up to the altar, pointing at me, smirking like he was a star of some bad movie. "You gonna say them vows now, boy?" Amanda's mother stood up in the pew, shaking. "Leave them alone, please." The man turned to her, tilted his head, and gave her a slow nod. "We're just here to watch, lady." He turned back to me, but what he didn't see was the man stepping through the church doors behind him. A man in a dark suit, badge shining on his belt, eyes cold like a winter morning. Folks in town knew him, but these clowns were too busy laughing to notice. He stepped forward, clearing his throat, voice quiet but cutting through the air like a blade. "That's enough." The tallest turned around, laughter dying as he took in the sight of the badge. "Who are you supposed to be?" The man didn't blink. "Federal Marshal." The smirk slipped off the troublemaker's face like water off a windshield. His eyes darted around, looking for an exit that wasn't there. The other two shifted, their confidence draining out of them like a flat tire losing air. "You're going to leave," the marshal said, "or you're going to leave in cuffs." The church was dead silent. Even the babies stopped crying, like they knew this was the moment everything changed. The troublemaker's mouth opened like he had something smart to say, but nothing came out. Instead, he took a step back, then another, until he was standing beside his friends, all of them looking smaller than they did 5 minutes ago. They turned and started walking down the aisle, heads down now, boots suddenly quiet. The marshal followed them, hand resting on his belt, eyes never leaving them until they stepped outside, the heavy doors closing behind them with a deep echo that felt like thunder rolling through the pews. I stood there, chest rising and falling, feeling the weight lifting off my shoulders piece by piece. I turned to Amanda, and she was smiling now, tears rolling down her cheeks, but the kind you want to see, the kind that says, "We made it." The pastor gave me a nod, and we turned back to the altar. I took Amanda's hands, looking her in the eyes, seeing every reason I had to keep standing, to keep fighting for moments like this. "I promise to love you, to protect you, and to stand beside you," I said, my voice clear, each word echoing off the walls, filling the room with something bigger than fear. Amanda's voice was steady as she repeated her vows, her hands gripping mine so tight it almost hurt. But I didn't mind. That was the grip of hope, of faith, of a promise we were making, not just to each other, but to everyone watching. When the pastor finally said, "You may kiss the bride," I leaned in, and the whole church erupted, clapping, shouting, letting out all that tension they had held in. And let me tell you, that kiss was more than a kiss. It was a promise to ourselves that no matter who tried to take our moment, we would stand together, unshaken.